Hey, what's going on, Relentless Goal Achievers? I hope you guys are having a great day. I did the seven unheard of books to change your mindset a few weeks back, and I got some really good responses. So today I am back. I'm going to give you guys 5 books to get unstuck. For those of you who don't know my story, back in 2014, I kind of felt like what I now call a sad clown. So everything on the outside was looking good. On the inside, I really did not like where I was. I really didn't know where I wanted to go. I just knew that where I was not happy. I felt stuck. And so what I did was I hired a coach. We started working together. And through that process between 2014 and now, here we are 9 years later, my whole life changed. But my life changed way faster than 9 years. And so looking back at it, I thought, well, what books that I've read since then that if I read them at that time would have made the most impact? And I took these books out of my library and I'm going to give them to you in order. And at the end, I'm going to give you the bonus book that I'm going to be reading next. I haven't read it yet. I'm going to read it next. So here we go. The first book, if you're feeling stuck, the first book I would recommend you read is Atomic Habits by James Clear. The reason I would recommend this book first is because one thing I would hope that you realize is that, let's say you're procrastinating. What we tend to do is we say, oh, I'm a procrastinator, I never get things done. And that's really hurting your greater good. That doesn't help you by saying that. Instead of saying I'm a procrastinator, if you could realize that you have a habit of procrastination, then it's easy to change the habit. It's not easy to change yourself. And so procrastination is a habit. Smoking is a habit. Drinking is a habit. Whatever you're doing that's not serving your greater good, whatever you're doing that's keeping you stuck is a habit that you formed. And so maybe it's with weight, maybe it's with food, whatever that is. And so James Clear does a really good job of helping you understand what a habit is, how to replace that habit with a better habit in very interesting, small, doable steps. And so one thing that I highlight as I read, and so this one's really good. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. This is the one reason why meaningful change does not require radical change. Small habits can make a meaningful difference by providing evidence of a new identity. Each time you write a page, you're a writer. Each time you practice a violin, you're a musician. Each time you start a workout, you're an athlete. Each time you encourage your employees, you're a leader. This book can greatly help you develop newer habits that are going to take you to that next level. So number one is Atomic Habits. Number two, I just gave it away. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey. Very, very famous book. Over 15 million copies sold. Probably more now. So once you figure out that you are not your habits and it's your habits that need to get changed and not you per se, then it's like, well, okay, well, what habits should I install, right? What habits should I develop? And that's where this book comes in. Develop these 7 habits. So Atomic Habits is going to teach you how to develop new habits. These are the habits you need to develop. So let's hop in here for a quick second. I love this. He talks about taking responsibility for everything because that's what winners do. He says we are responsible for our own effectiveness, for our own happiness, and ultimately, I would say, for most of our circumstances. Knowing that we are responsible, and then in quotes he says, response-able, right? Responsible means we are able to respond, right? Response-able is fundamental to effectiveness and to every other habit of effectiveness we will discuss. So definitely, once you're done with Atomic Habits, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey is incredible. Now, once you've developed these 7 habits, now you're on a whole different level. I'm going to bring up a classic that so many people talk about, and that's Think and Grow Rich. Probably one of my favorite books. I'm thinking about doing a mastermind group on this book in the Relentless Goal Achievers tribe. But we're going to do it differently. We're going to do it through a lens of entrepreneurship. I read this book a bunch of times. I've studied this book. I remember my mentor, the first time I was learning to read this book, one of the chapters is on persistence, chapter 9. And before we got to it, he said, all right, Eric, well, before we start, for the next 2 weeks, I need you to read the chapter on persistence every single day for 14 days. If you don't read it one day or don't finish it, you have to start all over for 14 days. And that was my lesson on persistence, and it was a good one. I can tell you everything in that chapter. That's the chapter about the McDonald's story. Anyway, reading out of this, one of the main weaknesses of mankind is the average person's familiarity with the word impossible. He knows all the rules that will not work. He knows all the things that cannot be done. This book was written for those who seek the rules that have made others successful and are willing to state everything on those rules. So now that you know what a habit is, and now that you've developed the 7 habits of highly effective people, it's time to start thinking like the successful people. And this book is incredible, written by Napoleon Hill, coming out of the Depression. He interviewed over 25,000 people over a 20-year period of time. He interviewed the most successful, like, billionaires of their time, the Rockefellers, the Henry Fords, Thomas Edisons, and learning from them, he wrote this book, like what gets them to be successful. So if you're stuck, first thing we're going to do is figure out what habits do we have that don't serve us and how do we get rid of them and replace them. Next, we install 7 new habits, and now we start thinking to get ourselves to that next level. This book is incredible. All right. With that is going to come self-doubt. As you start getting ideas, as you start getting goals, the old you is going to pop in and start talking smack. And this is why I'm recommending is book number 4, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter. I actually had Dr. Helmstetter on my show. He's incredible. The main premise of this book is that our brain is like a computer system, right? So you have the hardware, that's the computer, but you also have the software, that's the program that runs the computer. What Dr. Helmstetter suggests is that every single thing that we say is programming our computer. Everything. It's amazing. Like, this book is a game changer. It's a life changer. So let me read a little bit for you from here. If everything you tell yourself about yourself becomes a directive to your subconscious mind, then anytime you make a statement about yourself that is negative, you're directing your subconscious mind to make you become the person you just described negatively. Here are just a few examples of frequently used negative self-talk. And this might not even seem like negative. It might seem like, well, yeah, it's normal, right? But it's not. It doesn't serve you. Things like, I can't remember names. So what he says is that as soon as you say, I can't remember names, what you're doing is programming your subconscious mind to be the person who can't remember names. Like, there's absolutely zero good that can come from you saying, I can't remember names. So stop saying it. It's going to be another one of those days. We don't want to say that. It's just no use. I just don't know. I just know it won't work. I mean, how many of us know it won't work? Nothing ever goes right for me. I always lose my luggage at the airport. And then what do you know? You always lose your luggage at the airport. So, number 4, what to say when you talk to yourself, because we need to get very, very intentional about speaking to ourselves positively. Most of us will say things to ourselves that we wouldn't even say to people we hate. And that is the truth. Write down some of the things you say and you'll notice that. Anyway, what to say when you talk to yourself. Many of you probably know that I'm a part of a men's group called F3. It's letter F, number 3. And if you go to f3nation.com, you learn all about it. The 3 F's stand for fitness, fellowship, and faith. It's all free. It's open to all men. And the whole purpose is to invigorate male community leadership. One of the founders of the book, David Redding, we call him Dread. All of us have some goofy names. He wrote Q-Source. And Q-Source really is a manual to live your life. It's a manual for to live a virtuous leader's life. Now, he was Special Forces Army guy. I believe he's an Army Ranger. Now he's an attorney in Charlotte. David Redding is an amazing guy. I had him on my podcast as well. And this book is divided into 4 different topics. And the topics are, first, you get right? Because all of us, the sad clown came from F3. That's where I got the name from. That's where I got the idea from. A lot of men are in that sad clown phase. And so the first thing we want to do is we want to get right. Once we get right, we want to live right. That's the second part. How do you live right? The third part is lead right. Now, how do you become the leader that you need to become so that you can now impact your community, your family, your surroundings? And then the fourth part is leave right. How do you leave a legacy that you are remembered for? How do you leave that impact? And so this is Q Source. Let me just read a little bit from here for you, from my good friend Dredd, or David Redding. I love this. I love how he writes this, because he's such a military guy. It's all like direct to the point. If a man calls himself a leader but does not cause disruption by initiating movement, that he is not practicing leadership. He might be doing something else, like managing or governing, but he's not leading. He's a leader in name only until people begin to follow him to an advantageous place that he has visualized and articulated to them. A leader is a person who influences movement to advantage. What a great definition of leadership. So these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books that I would highly recommend if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you're up against it, you don't know what steps to take next. Don't take any steps next, right? Les Brown has something in a speech where he talks about a flying arrow. For an arrow to fly fast and far, what do? You pull it back first. So this may be the time for you to kind of pause, pull back, pick up a book, start with Atomic Habits, figure out what habits you need to change, then go to 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Think and Grow Rich, talk to yourself properly, and learn how to lead. Now, I told you guys about a bonus book that I'm going to start next. If you've ever seen Bob Proctor perform, and may he rest in peace, he was amazing, then you probably heard him talk about Dr. Thurman Fleet. He does that when he does his stickman figure and talks about the conscious and the subconscious mind. Well, Dr. Thurman Fleet was badass. He's like a World War I veteran, wounded, like hero back in the day, who afterwards moved to Texas and became a chiropractor. And he noticed some pretty cool things with working with the body and then with the mind. So Dr. Thurman Fleet wrote this book called Rays of the Dawn. And it talks a lot about what he called concept therapy. It's how do we control our thoughts? How does our subconscious mind control our feelings and our actions that we take, which ultimately leads to the results that we get? I have not read this book, but I've done a ton of studying from Dr. Thurman Fleet, and I'm excited about this being my 6th book on this list. So I hope this list is helpful to you. If it is, leave me a comment. Let me know if I missed some books that you want to see on the list or that you'd recommend for me. And also, hop into the Relentless Goal Achievers community on Facebook and let's connect there. All right, guys, have an awesome day. I will talk to you on the next episode.